Hello everybody, it's Claire back with another art journal video. So in this one I am playing with the art foamies that Quinlan designed for art foamies. So yeah, I managed to get hold of lots of these, the figures that she did. I love using faces in my journal pages, and so for me these were just perfect. So I'm going to start off by adding some text collage paper onto my background. I'm playing in the small craft journal. And I'm sticking this in place using some matte medium, and I'm just adding this onto the page to kind of get started. Sometimes it's a great place to start is just by getting something on your background. It can just give you that kind of springboard into starting the rest of your journal page. So then once that was dry, I've then put out some dots of rainbow colour and picked them up on my paintbrush. This is one of my favourite techniques to do. I think it's just a great way to sweep those colours onto your page. It works particularly well with just a couple of colours on your brush, but works even better with rainbow colours, and as you know I love those. So this is one of the coasters stencils from Dina, and here I'm using carnation. This at the minute seems to be my kind of choice of first colour to add when I've gone in with rainbow colours. I think because it's nice and light, it's a good contrast, but it's not quite as stark as white. It's a bit softer. So this was a good first layer, and then I am using permanent red violet light with another of the coaster stencils and just bringing in a little bit more stenciling. A slightly darker pink worked quite well because there wasn't any pink in my rainbow, so it just introduced that nice sort of pink tone to the page as well. Then this is the mantra stencil, and then for some unknown reason I have gone in with a little bit of black. I think I was probably thinking, here's some contrast with all the bright colours and the light stenciling that's gone on before, and I think it works okay, but looking back now I kind of think maybe I should have gone in with a different colour. But anyway, it doesn't matter, does it? It's irrelevant. So these are the Art Foamie stamps, and I'm using a blending tool to apply paint to them. I'm using black acrylic paint. I've seen lots of different techniques of getting paint onto these. Some people brayer the paint onto a gel plate, and then kind of stamp the stamp onto there to pick up the paint. I find this is the best way. You can see that one there didn't print brilliantly. It's just because I hadn't been heavy-handed enough with the paint. This is certainly using the blending tool I found is the best way. Think again, like with any stamp, if you're going to use acrylic paint with it, you must clean it straight after. Don't let the paint dry, because it can affect the image. It can kind of dry in little lumps and clumps where you don't want it to be. And there I was just seeing if I was going to be able to kind of match it up to the initial image, and I'm really going in with lots of paint now and carefully lining that up. And then I was like, well, what's the worst that happens is I have to stamp it out again, but it worked fine. So then just cutting those out. So I'm just stamping these onto ordinary printer paper. There's nothing special about this. And then I was kind of deciding where I was going to group them. So I wanted them to be in a 3, so in a little group together. So I'm sticking these in place, these first 2, and then I'm going to just extend those bodies down, because at the minute you notice they're kind of floating up in the air. Didn't want them to be floating, obviously, because that does look a little bit odd. So I'm just popping out some black acrylic paint, and then I'm just going to pull those body shapes down to the bottom of the page to just anchor those figures onto my journal page. So now those are firmly in place and they're dry, I'm then going to add this third figure kind of overlapping over the top of those other 2. It makes quite a fun little group of figures. So just trimming off the excess. And then I'm just using the scribble sticks and Neocolour 2s, and I'm just using a water brush and going in and just adding some little pops of colour on these figures as well, on the little bits of doodling that they've got on their heads and faces, just to bring a little bit of brightness to them, because although I like the black and white image, I did feel that I wanted to add some colour to them. So that's one of the lovely things about these little stamps, is that you can play with the white spaces and just bring a bit of colour to them. Of course, you don't have to stamp them in black. You could stamp them in a colour as well, and then go on and add more colour on top. But I wanted these to be black because they'd be a great contrast with my bright, colourful background. So just using these water-soluble pigment sticks, a bit like watercolour paints really, and using that water brush to activate the pigment, and then picking some up and popping it onto my images. Then once they're nice and dry, I'm just going in with my Posca pen and I'm just darkening and sharpening some of those lines, particularly on the faces, just to bring those features forward a little bit, and just make, like I say, just sharpen them up. So then I'm using my dotty stamp, you know, one of my favourites, and I'm just bringing in some dots where those images come onto the page. It just helps to kind of blend those out for me, really. And I really like the way that that works. So I'm using archival ink for that as well. Then I'm using a white Posca pen and decided to just add some more marks onto this figure, onto the body. And then I'm going back in with the scribble sticks and Neocolour 2s and just bringing in a bit more brightness onto those areas of colour on the headdresses. Managed to make a hole in that one there. Can you see? It was obviously not dry enough. So just make sure that they're really properly dry before you go going crazy with your colours like I'm doing. Now, I've left this bit in to show you. So I started writing my quote, and I wanted to kind of have this idea of following the flow of the rainbow colours. Wrote it on and I was like, oh my days, I really don't like that. So I got my baby wipe out and rubbed it away. And it was as easy as that. There was a little trace of it left, but not that much that it mattered. Because there's those other layers of stenciling underneath and the collage paper, it really didn't matter that there were tiny, tiny bits of the text that I'd just written on peeping through. So I gave it a good dry and then went in again to try again. So because the Posca pen wasn't completely dry, I was able to mostly rub it off. So if your underneath layer is dry, don't worry if you make a mistake and do something that you don't like. Sometimes it is possible to rub it off with a baby wipe. So then I've just, I'm journaling along that bottom line and the top line where the flow of the colours are across my page, just doing some asemic writing up there, some scribbly writing. And I think I then added some white dots as well for more contrast. And then I'm using a Signo Uniball and I'm adding like a drop shadow onto these letters. It kind of does draw a bit more focus to them, makes them pop out from the page a little bit more. And it's also quite a fun technique to use as well, just to bring a bit of difference to your text on your page. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this video where I've used Megan Quinlan's art foamy stamps. The art foamies are just such lovely stamps to play with. They create such fabulous images, and these ones were particularly fun. So yeah, maybe this has inspired you to have a go at swooping a rainbow across your page, or I don't know, stamping black and white images and using those as a contrast on your page too. Well, thanks for watching. and I hope to see you again soon.